Their sex drive is different than mine. What should I do about it? We're going to dive into this conversation. Suppose your partner has a significant different sex drive than you. Well, oftentimes these types of situations might cause a lot of shame, a lot of fear, particularly around the conversation you might have discussing this difference in sex drive. And the most important thing to do is to have open and honest communication about your needs and your feelings without judgment. Let me repeat that, without judgment, to understand the reasons behind the discrepancy and work together to find solutions that satisfy both of you. This may include exploring alternate forms of intimacy, setting realistic expectations, considering couples therapy if the issue is causing significant conflict in your relationship. And in a moment, I will share how to approach this conversation going forward. Now, I want to read to you something I posted in my community page that I think you might find valuable for this conversation. And something occurred to me a few weeks ago that I'd like to share my thoughts. Nearly the majority of divorces cite a lack of sex and emotional intimacy in their marriage. And given that 75% of singles in the dating marketplace who are over 45 years old are divorced, I think it's kind of important to recognize that sex and emotional intimacy is the primary reason why relationships fail. Let me reframe that. And whether it's marriage or a significant relationship. As a midlife dating coach, I'm often asked, what's the problem with dating in midlife? And I believe one huge issue is a lack of proper sex education, particularly understanding our own bodies, our desires, our lovemaking skills, and a fundamental weakness in emotional IQ and an adequate understanding of one's emotions, our ability to address our fears and insecurities. So when you take these two weaknesses combined, it creates poor relationship skills. Let me repeat that. It creates poor relationship skills. And I think it's radically important to address these in the dating marketplace. So if you find yourself single right now and you're desirous of a relationship, then I think it's hugely important to develop the emotional IQ and also the sexual IQ. I'm putting that out there, the sexual IQ that can create a healthy, happy relationship with another person. You know, in 2020, there was a study on couples strategies for dealing with the differences in relationship or sexual desires. And what was interesting is masturbation was the most common strategy reported by participant to solve the problem. Other alternatives included penetrative sex, oral sex, manual stimulation, and using sex toys with each other. You know what's interesting to me? Nobody really talks about this in the dating realm. Sex is oftentimes a taboo conversation. It's a conversation of shame. It's a conversation of fear. And very few people actually have these kind of conversations before they're physically intimate. And then what happens is, because you've been silent, because you've had, please forgive me, duct tape over your mouth, whether it's you or the man, oftentimes the emotional effects of these differences start getting buried deep and deep and deep. And then it's harder to talk about it. As I said before, shame and fear. Plus, there's also a taboo talking about sex. I know many people feel that it's inappropriate to talk about sex. But given that sex is our birthright, sex is a beautiful thing we experience with another human being, why are we so, and I say we, I'm saying the collective we, why are human beings so fearful about having these deeper conversations? You know, whether it's she has the higher sex drive or he has the higher sex drive. Oftentimes, couples will find that one person has a higher sex drive. You know what's interesting at midlife? It's actually the women who seem to have the higher sex drive than men, mainly because we men experience erectile dysfunction. And because of it, it is such a shameful experience. And we fear not being able to satisfy our partner. I'm going to repeat that. That's a very shameful experience to feel as though that we might not be able to satisfy our partner. And ladies I recognize that you have your own body image fears around being naked with someone. I mean, these are the kind of natural things that happen. And yes, we are all so afraid to talk about it. We're so ashamed to talk about it. And I'm going to offer a way to have a conversation in a moment that might make it a little bit easier the next time you find yourself in a circumstance where sex is an important conversation. Some people ask, when should you talk about sex? Well, I think you should talk about physical intimacy and your desires of what you like well before you're physically intimate with someone. For example, I'll share something publicly with you all. I'm a demisexual. I'm going to own that. What that means is I need an emotional connection. I need a heart on to go with my heart on. I'm a demisexual. I need that emotional connection. You know, it's interesting. As men age, their testosterone levels drop and their estrogen levels begin to increase. Now, some people are on hormone replacement or therapy and such. But I can tell you, as I've gotten older, I need an emotional connection. My days of those younger days where it's just about getting off doesn't seem to matter. And I've noticed a lot of men feel the same way. And what's interesting, as I said before, there can be plenty of women that have the higher sex drive. And so it's important to have these conversations about our bodies, how our bodies operate, and what our sexual preferences are. Listen, some people have some wild thoughts. Maybe they're border on BDSM, but maybe it borders on kink. Maybe they have certain fetishes. I know some people like their toes sucked. That's a fetish, if you will. Fetishes are actually body sensations, or kinks are more like orientation, whether a man is more dominant in the bedroom, whether a woman is more submissive in bedroom. Maybe they switch off. These are things that I think we should all know about our sexual preferences before we ever go out in the dating marketplace, because oftentimes we expect the other person to know us so well, what our likes and our dislikes are. And then when we're disappointed, and as I said before, we put duct tape over our mouth, not talking about the more important conversations. So what can you do about it? What should you do? First, I'm inviting everyone, and write this down. Can someone write this in the chat box? Number one, initiate a calm conversation. Initiate a calm conversation. Choose a time when you're both relaxed and not in the midst of a sexual situation to discuss your concerns. You know, ladies, you always tell me it's important to be communication. But as I said before, many of you have duct tape over your mouth and you're fearful of having those deeper conversations. I'm here to encourage intimate, calm conversations. That's the first thing you should do. Now, I know that seems rather simple and obvious, but the fear and shame around having this conversation, because the fear and shame is the minute you open up this conversation, it's this fear that it will open up Pandora's box where a person might end the relationship. And let me just tell you, if you've ever read my book, What the Heck is Self-Love Anyway? Chapter 1 says, speak your truth, do it with kindness. And chapter 9 says, if it's sincere and from the heart, you can't say the wrong thing to the right person. When you speak calmly from the heart, tap into your heart and say, I'm going to speak from this place. And that's a great place to initiate a conversation, from a calm, sincere, heart-centered place. Number 2, use I statements. Use I statements. Express your feelings without blaming your partner. Focus on how their different sex drive makes you feel, not blaming them, but just express how you feel. Ladies, this is going to be another criticism of you, but you're supposedly the emotional containers of the relationship, and yet so many of you have duct tape over your mouth, because I think effective communication skills is actually a weakness within men and women alike. If you haven't read the book Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg, I highly recommend reading this book. It should have been titled Compassionate Communication. Should have been titled Compassionate Communication. But here's the thing, it's all about learning how to express your needs from the I statement. So remember, number 2, use I statements. Express your feelings without blaming your partner or the person you're going to be intimate with. Number 3, listen actively, or active listening. Pay attention to your partner's perspective and try to understand the reasons behind the different desired sexual levels. Listen actively. In fact, to actively listen, it might also include repeating what the other person said to you. Validate what the other person said to you. Hey, it's 11:11. Validate what they say. Repeat what they say. That lets them know that you're actively listening to one another. Active listening. Okay, number 4, explore potential causes. Discuss lifestyle factors like stress, fatigue, health concerns, medication that might be impacting your partner's libido. Let's face it, as we age, for those of us in midlife, this is a real factor. Whether you're a man or woman, our bodies just don't operate the way we did when we were in our 20s and 30s. So it's important to find out what to explore what could be causing the libido. Now, when I say libido difference, again, this isn't a couple who started with a high libido and one person dropped in the different. This is for those couples where the sex drive is radically different, where one has a higher sex drive than the other. But explore what could be causing it. Oftentimes, stress, fatigue, health concerns are the major reasons behind sex differences. And again, exploring potential causes helps to further a more healthy conversation. Because ladies, you've said to me repeatedly, communication is most important. But if you're not communicating in an effective way, then what's going to happen is friction, and friction. Now, if there are differences in sexual desires, then number 5, identify compromises. Find ways to meet each other halfway, such as scheduling delicate intimacy time with one another or exploring non-sexual forms of closeness. This requires being a little bit more outside of the box than being disappointed. Believe me, there are sex therapists, and I'm going to talk about that next, because number 6 is counseling, consider professional help. But compromises first is to recognize that where can you guys meet each other in the middle, for one. And as I said, next is consider professional help. Sometimes communication alone isn't enough. There are actual professionals that help guide couples in this area. I think it's time to let go of the shame and the fear around talking about sex and actually have deeper conversations with your partner from the very beginning. Because let's face it, the minute you begin a relationship with someone, that oftentimes the sex is the primary aspect of the relationship, but it's going to shift. Having these conversations will make a big difference. And it's not like you get a pass to say, oh, I have a headache, I don't want to do it. It's about having, and not to suggest that isn't a valid reason, but you know what? If your desire for your partner shifts, then it's important to talk about that, because sex is a critically important part of a relationship, at least a romantic relationship, because otherwise you can just have a roommate. Otherwise you can just have a companion. Part of the whole point of a romantic relationship is the penis is going inside the vagina for those heterosexual couples. And since I don't talk about alternate relationships, and so maybe seeking a counselor could help. Now, number 7, it's normal to have different libidos. Not everyone has the same sexual desire. This is a common issue within relationships. And I think it's important to normalize that it's absolutely okay that you have different sexual desires. As I said before, some people like things kinky, some people have fetishes. I guess the question is your relationship worth investing in another? Is your relationship worth investing with one another? And we have 2 more to go. Number 8, empathy is key. Try to understand your partner's perspective. If you can't come from a place of empathy, if you come from a place of judgment, blame, criticism, contempt, that's not going to be healthy for the relationship all the way around. So empathy is key. And by the way, this is both people being empathetic, not just one-sided. And last but not least, number 9 is be realistic about your expectations. Don't expect your partner to suddenly, all of a sudden, match your desired level. Work together to find a balance that works for both of you. Work together to find a balance that works for both of you. These aren't easy conversations. I tried to give you a simple format. You can come back and jot notes and write this down. But the most important message I want to convey to everyone is it's time to speak from your heart about one of the most important subjects around a romantic relationship, and that is sex. sex. Sex is one of the most important facets. Even though we do it so little in a relationship as a percentage of time, it has probably the greatest amount of meaning. And yet, as I said earlier, too many people have duct tape over their mouth. And I'm just simply here to encourage healthy communication. I tried to create an outline of what you should do. And let me just say, good men want more than just sex. All of these conversations build intimacy. It builds trust. It builds real connection with your partner. And that's the invitation I have for all of you. Is this sinking in? Is this resonating with you? Please let me know if it is. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Post a comment below. I do my best to read them all in the first 24 hours. As always, if you find value in my videos, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of new videos as well. Also, if you want to connect with me directly, hey, there's a link below to schedule a there's links below to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. There's a link to join my group called Midlife Love Mastery. There's a link to follow me on Instagram and get all the books I recommend, all listed below. All right, those who know my live format know it's time for Q&A. If you have a question, there's a little chat box in the corner. Write the word question, then post the question thereafter. Or you can purchase a super sticker, super chat. There's a little $ in the chat box. All of the monies from the super sticker, super chat goes to a scholarship fund in the name of my son, Connor Asley. That's a picture of him right there. He's my son. Oops. He's my son who passed away over 5 years ago. And 6 years ago, excuse me. Fuck. Now I'm starting to forget. Is it 5 or it's 6 years ago? In his honor, we donate to causes like the Hoffman Process Insight Institute. We give scholarships to coaching as well. And our goal tonight is $50. So I'd appreciate some love tonight. If 25 of you donated $2, I would be grateful. And if you want to join the Love Seat, I just post a link right now. And you can join me live and talk to me in person right here on camera. Sarah wants to remind us empathy is key in relationship. Also, Lisa Cunningham wants to remind us that quickies can be fun. I'm all in favor of quickies. So I'm a guy. I love a quickie. I love a longie and I love a quickie. As I said before, I'm demisexual, so I also like to have an emotional connection as well. Billy Holt says, I started to express my needs and now know my guy likes me because all the girls in town enjoy being misused. They think it's honorable. Okay, I don't understand. I started expressing my needs and now no guy likes me because all the girls in town enjoy being misused and they think it's honorable. Again, you have to work on what works for you. So that's my invitation. Rachel says, sex, what's that? Well, why are you following my channel? I'm just curious. Let's come back and says CB 1952 says, be realistic about finding and agreeing on compromise is your goal to find real intimacy, true and total connection between the two of you. Speak your truth. Exactly what I was saying. All right. Hey, if we have a bashful group, we're going to sign off really early tonight. So I'd appreciate some comments in the comment section. If you have a question, okay, here we go. Billy has a question. What are your standards about being demisexual? What does a partner need to be like? Well, you know, it's interesting. Hold on a second. So that's a great question. I want to pull something up on my phone, so bear with me. So lately I've been studying the 7 love languages. This is kind of an adjunct to Gary Chapman's The 5 Love Languages. But so I think for someone like myself, feeling appreciated and adored through words is radically important. Also, intellectual stimulation and emotional stimulation. So appreciation through words, emotional, intellectual stimulation. That's what I believe at least this demisexual is more concerned with, that appreciation, adoration, emotional connection, emotional maturity, and intellectual. I'm a sapiosexual. So I'm radically turned on. I'm radically turned on by intellectual conversation. So I hope that answers your question regarding, at least for myself. And I can only speak for myself in this particular case because each person is unique to themselves. But demisexual basically means they need a heart on to go with their heart on. Okay. Let's keep going here. Billy comes back with a question. Okay, I mean, social class, does that not matter? I don't understand that question, so thank you so much. Folks, we're going to get off we're going to end very quickly if we don't have some more comments in the comment section. So I'm going to give it another 30 seconds. Okay. SMM says, is it odd that I think amazing sex starts early in the day with mindset well before we can even touch one another? I think flirtation with your partner, I mean, you can have all the mindset in the world, but if you're not communicating what's going on in your mind, I think flirtation is a great way to start. Sexual flirtation, certainly that can start very early on. But just remember, if you're going to flirt with a guy sexually, be prepared for him to want it sooner rather than later. At least my perspective has always been that way. SMM. Okay. Marianne says, flirting is important with your partner. It starts in the middle of the mind all day until you can be together. Yeah, you can always prime the pump with text messaging, flirtation, get that, prime the pump going. Absolutely. Billy Old, what should a demisexual expect when they're interested? Well, as I kind of alluded to, you know, that they really want to connect on an emotional level through appreciation, through adoration, through intellectual stimulation. I mean, that's what primes the pump for a demisexual. It's as much it's as much about the mind and the emotions as it is the body. So that's my perception about it anyway. That's only because that's me. So like I said, I can only speak for myself. All right, let's see if there's any other questions that's come in. Looks like we have a bashful group tonight. All right, I'm going to give it another 30 seconds. Otherwise, we're going to wrap up early. I guess this topic didn't generate a lot of clicks, so you know, we'll cover it again on another time. All right, you know what? I think we're going to wrap this one up early because this doesn't seem like a group that has a lot of questions. So, okay. Zen Maiden is in the house. I don't think all the labels are really needed. If your partners want to be together, there's good connection. What do you think about all this? Labels aren't that you have to be concerned. You know what? I'm a dating coach. That's a label. Are we going to make don't get so caught up with the word labels. It's just a label is to identify something, so it makes it easier to categorize something. So I wouldn't get caught up in that, Zen Maiden. I wouldn't get caught up in that. But yes, I will say a good communication, good connection is radically important. There's no doubt about that. All right. Summer says, much nicer, Jonathan. You always do great. Thank you so much. Sarah's in the house. If you already have struggles with being physical because you have a disability, you know what? I'm not qualified to answer that for somebody who has a disability. I would venture to say that speak to a healthcare professional, speak to your doctor, speak to a sex therapist, have open communication with your partner if that's the case. But that's what comes to mind really quickly on that one, Sarah. Okay. Great question. Thank you so much. Carol is in the house. I have a BFF and coworker of 5 years that recently told me that he has a strong feelings for me with possible love me. Does he just want sex? He ghosted for almost a month now. Well, strong feelings doesn't mean that I want to run off in the sunset with you until you're actively in partnership with one another. It just means he has feelings for you. Are they usually driven by lust and limerence? Oftentimes that's the case. It's driven by biology. But until you're actually doing social activities, hobbies, mutual interests, spending time with family and friends, traveling together, teamwork, building skills, both in your personal and your professional life, it just means, you know, he just has feelings for you. Those feelings aren't the facts forever. They're just facts in the moment. So I wouldn't make it out to mean anything more than it already does. Rachel, as a demi, I find one-time encounters unfulfilling and regrettable. You know, I can say that I've had a few one-time encounters that were unfulfilling and regrettable, and I've had some circumstances where it's been amazingly fulfilling because there's been an open communication with one another. When you have open, heart-centered communication, again, I would agree with you more often than not if it's a one-night stand that's not fulfilling, but it doesn't necessarily have to always be that way when you speak from the heart with somebody. Zen Maiden says, how do you suggest a balance of different levels of desire for frequency? Well, usually the person who wants at least tends to win, unfortunately. I'm not that it's a contest to win, but you know what? Again, making agreements with one another about your desires, about your differences, and finding that space of compromise, just like we talked about earlier in this broadcast, okay? Question, what to do? Had amazing sex partner years ago. Since then, haven't found one to match my sex life. But the blank, but as people, the men have been much more stable. I don't see the question there, okay? I mean, what to do? You know, it's interesting. I was speaking to a woman who said she's widowed and 35-year amazing marriage. And she's like, am I ever going to find that again? You know, I don't know if we just have to sometimes just appreciate what we have and go, you know, it's never going to always be the same. Every day in life is unique and different. There's no guarantees. You're not going to die at the same time or have, you know, that things are going to end. That's just part of life, experiencing loss or experiencing grief. It's what we do with our lives that matters most from a spiritual perspective. And maybe we don't get the same fulfilling sex, but maybe we find fulfillment in other ways. At least that's my invitation for you, okay? Rachel says, that's a good point, but I have separation issues. That's also hard. I get it. It's hard to disconnect from someone when we have an emotional connection and it doesn't go any further. So I can definitely relate to that. Hey, folks, I think I'm going to do a short broadcast today. Did you find value in this conversation? If you did, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Post a comment below. As always, if you find value in my videos, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of new videos. Also, make sure you hit the notification bell on your phone as well. Also, if you want to connect with me directly, there's links below to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. There's a link to join my group called Midlife Love Mastery. There's a link to follow to get all the books I recommend, to get my dating vows. Follow me on Instagram, all listed below. All right, I'm going to wrap up this video as I always do. First off, give myself a big, gigantic Jonathan Bear hug of self-love. I'm going to reach into the camera and give you a hug of love if that's okay. I'm asking you to turn to someone, a pet, a teddy bear, a pillow. Give it or them a hug of love, because hugs are a great source of love. And let's face it, we could all use more love in our lives. I want to thank Zen Maiden and Rachel and DM. Donate to the Connor Asley Scholarship Fund before we wrap up. Marianne and Sarah and Billy Holt and KT and Carol and Summer and Sarah. Everyone, SMM, everyone, big hugs. Appreciate your love. Wishing you all a super duper wonderful day, evening. Bye now. Bye-bye. Bye.